What is going on, Hive Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about intermittent fasting versus caloric restriction. Yes, the big battle that we seem to always be fighting here in the fitness industry. Does intermittent fasting have any enhanced benefits to caloric restriction? I'm going to tackle what the differences are and why you want to choose intermittent fasting over simply caloric restriction. So let's go ahead and jump into this video. Stay tuned. Here's the thing, caloric restriction has to exist in both protocols. If you're simply just doing calorie restriction, you obviously have to restrict calories. But if you're doing intermittent fasting, you also have to restrict calories, as that is part of the dynamic of losing weight. That is part of the overall weight loss, fat loss system that you must apply. The thing with caloric restriction is that hormonally, it doesn't do much for you. So then you're probably wondering, what does intermittent fasting do? What's so great about intermittent fasting? And we're not even talking about the health benefits that come from intermittent fasting, the additional health benefits that come from it, considering the fact that you're fasting, things like Alzheimer's prevention, things like cancer cell prevention, things like combating type 2 diabetes, autophagy. Those kinds of things aren't even going to be touched on in this video. The only thing that I'm touching on is weight loss, fat loss, and the metabolic and hormonal structures that come with weight loss and fat loss. The thing about caloric restriction is that it fails in its simplicity. It is simply reducing calories to lose weight, but our bodies contain much more complexity than simply just reducing your calories to lose weight. Where intermittent fasting shines and calorie restriction doesn't is that it also tackles all that extra additional hormonal, internal, biological, and metabolic factors that make it better to sustain weight loss, better to retain weight loss, and also better to burn fat, which is the most important thing, because that's the thing that you're tackling. You're not simply just tackling weight loss. The honest truth is you don't want to lose weight, you want to lose body fat. You want to retain muscle, you don't want to lose muscle. Caloric restriction can make you lose both muscle and fat, and at a sporadic rate. But intermittent fasting can help you focus specifically on fat. Now I'm going to touch on the things that intermittent fasting does that tackle fat specifically, in which caloric restriction does not do. Caloric restriction will reduce fat because you are reducing calories, and inevitably your body will have to eventually tap into your body fat to match the calorie deficit and provide the energy needed to run your full bodily functions. Same thing with intermittent fasting when applying the caloric deficit. But here's where intermittent fasting shines. Intermittent fasting shines because it structures your body to specifically target fat by doing things like lowering your insulin to baseline level for long periods of time. This is something that you cannot do if you're simply reducing calories but eating at a normal clip. Normal clip being breakfast, lunch, dinner. You are literally fighting against your own insulin to stay down. You want it to stay down because what happens in your body biologically when your insulin is at baseline is that your body unlocks body fat to be used, which is one of the reasons why intermittent fasting with caloric restriction is much better than simply just caloric restriction. It will take longer for your body to tap into body fat. It won't be tapping into your body fat as consistently as intermittent fasting will. And we're constantly learning new things about why intermittent fasting is so effective at burning fat specifically as the weight that you're reducing. Things like the white adipose browning. White adipose browning is when the white fat cells, which is designed to store, turns into brown fat cells, which are designed to burn. It actually transforms storing fat cells into burning fat cells. So not only is it already unlocking your body's potential to use body fat as energy, it is creating more potential to burn more fat by altering the triglycerides to be more in a fat burning mode so they can burn even more fat and transition more of your body fat to burn and to produce energy. This is your body reacting to the fact that you are not giving it energy. The reason body fat even exists is in the event that there is no energy coming in. That's what intermittent fasting provides. It is the hack to let your body feel that there is no energy coming in so that it can go ahead and tap into those stored energy, and also also transform stored energy into ready to burn energy. If you want to check that out, the study is below. It is the white adipose browning or beiging. I also have a full video breaking down the full study of white adipose browning right here if you want more information on it. Another thing that intermittent fasting does is that it pumps up more noradrenaline and more human growth hormone. More HGH starts to pump up to 2,500% because you're fasting. What this does is that it can protect muscle mass, and because of the protection of the muscle mass, it creates even less choices for your body to determine where it's going to pull more calories. It then gives it just two choices, glycogen and body fat. But here's the other kicker. When you do intermittent fasting, the fast resources that your body uses is glycogen. It tries to deplete your body of glycogen. So your body's literally working as a well-oiled machine to directly target body fat, because now you are protecting muscle, you're depleting glycogen, so there's only one other location for your body to pull calories, and that is from your body fat. So not only are you unlocking your body fat to be used by reducing your insulin to baseline by not eating for long periods of time, not only are you transitioning more stored body fat into brown or beige ready to burn body fat, you're also protecting muscle and depleting glycogen, giving your body no other source of energy to use other than your body fat. Now understand that the biology of the body is nuanced. Yes, it might tap a little here, a little there in terms of where it's getting its calories, but it is more heavily focused on burning body fat because you're setting up all these perimeters to force your body into that position. That is why caloric restriction alone is not as effective as intermittent fasting. And I know what you guys are gonna say, hey, where's the study to prove this? Where's the study that shows me that intermittent fasting is better than caloric restriction? Is there a head-to-head study? And a lot of people will pull out alternate day fasting studies that are not 0-calorie fasting days. So those in effect are just simply the same caloric restriction, mixing them in severity days versus days of abundance. That's all it is. 25% of your daily intake and 125% of your daily intake versus just 75% of your daily intake. Those head-to-head battles are not going to give you an accurate depiction of what intermittent fasting can do, because although it's tagging itself as alternate day fasting, it ain't truly alternate day fasting. The word fasting needs to be switched to alternate day severe caloric restriction, because that's truly what's happening on those studies. But if you just read the title and it says alternate day fasting and you just read the conclusion and not look into the full study and understand that the dynamics that have been proven through intermittent fasting in terms of the studies of the white adipose browning, the human growth hormone increase, and the body fat burning with the insulin reduction due to glucose deficiency, it's gonna look like fasting and caloric restriction doesn't have any significant advantage over the other. But here's the thing, when they do studies where there is 0-calorie intake on fasting days, the numbers don't lie. What is that? I'm sorry, you didn't think that they did any of these? They're very rare, but there are some out there. As a matter of fact, this study here, an alternate day fasting with 0-calorie intake versus calorie restriction alone, the weight reduction wasn't significantly different. But here's the thing, the biomarkers are setting up intermittent fasting or the alternate day fasting group for success, and is not setting up the caloric restriction group for success. And if you dive deeper into the study and you look at all of the data, even if they conclude that the weight itself wasn't significant, things like visceral fat, which is the fat around your abdominal area that are close to all of your organs, and the most dangerous fat, the truncal fat, was actually reduced by nearly 2 times more in the alternate day fasting group versus the caloric restriction group. Things like lean muscle mass retention was held higher in the alternate day fasting group versus the caloric restriction group. And this is the thing where they checked them for 8 weeks, then they moved into 32 weeks and they checked them again, and the alternate day fasting group still held on and increased their muscle mass much higher than the caloric restriction group, significantly higher. A lot of people out there will tell you right now that can't make sense, that's impossible. What about protein synthesis? Yeah, what about it? Human growth hormone increase has proven to be much more important and prominent to retaining muscle rather than consistently having protein going into your body. You can also see in the chart that as you start any diet, no matter what diet you start, is always going to be effective because your body's doing a drastic shift. You went from eating all of this food to a caloric restriction, your body is always going to react positively initially. But if you look at the insulin drop for both alternate day fasting and caloric restriction eventually plateaus while the alternate day fasting group continues to drop, making it a much more sustainable practice than simply just caloric restriction if you want to control insulin sensitivity. The next big marker when you want to talk about fasting versus caloric restriction, then this one might make you rethink everything you think you know about calorie restriction and fitness, is that the metabolic rate, the resting metabolic rate, only drop by 23 calories in the alternate day fasting group, but dropped by over 79 calories in the caloric restriction group. So yes, the weights may remain the same, but you have to look at the underlying elements. If you continue to do intermittent fasting, it is much more beneficial in directing body fat loss to be burned versus calorie restriction alone. There is also a longer study that is underway right now that will finish in September of 2019 that is looking at alternate day fasting with 0 calorie intake on fast days. I'm so happy that all of these people are implementing 0 calorie intake, because this study was the first study of its kind to show that it is actually still metabolically healthy to have a 0 calorie full day when doing alternate day fasting. So it's opening up doors for more studies to happen with 0 calorie fasting days. And you best believe that as soon as that study releases, I will be tackling that study and presenting it and breaking it down for you guys here on the Fledge Fitness channel. Keep an eye out, but that will be September of 2019. That is it, guys. I hope this was super informative for you, and I hope that it lends more information, as this is one of the biggest questions that I get. I hope that this video helps to get you closer to that answer. And I want to thank my patrons from my Patreon, and I'm gonna put their names right up here.